Ready to start. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So first things first. You're an NA. You're. Is that Lara? Is that what you are? Yeah.
Yes, my main is a Lara.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, and it sounds like you might want to switch a little bit.
Switch to the weapon, you mean?
No. Because you're saying like your main is a Lara, but is it like the main? Is it like the main focus? Is
Yeah.
that what you're working
Yeah, that's the
on?
main focus.
Okay.
That is my main.
Okay, cool. And you're approaching 275. Made some big gains with haste, I'm assuming.
Not really.
Not really.
Only 1.5 level actually.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really train much either, but some people went really ham and got their push to 270, push to 275 out there. But yeah, tell us a little bit about you. Like, how, do you play a lot? Do you have any specific goals in mind? Give us a little background.
Well, currently I'm taking a small health break due to my hands because I had a little bit of an injury.
Okay.
But I was pushing to 275. And my goal was to eventually do black match, but I feel stuck because my DPS is not apparently meeting the requirements, like people have said.
Okay, so you did the BA before. What are you at now? Like a full rotation BA?
My full rotation is 53 bill a second.
53 bill, yeah. Yeah, so what I heard is that like 60 is like bare minimum, but if the whole party's at 60, it's still very rough. So typically people want for the damagers to be closer to like 75 to even, as far as beyond that. And are there any parties in your guild that are like starting to recruit that you would be able to join, or?
No, I'm not even considered.
Okay, because you're just trash low DPS, so they don't even.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
It doesn't help that I'm European, so.
Oh yeah, time zones. Yeah, our first party kind of disbanded as well because of it was scheduling, and yeah, a lot of people only have time in the weekends and then very late in the day, and then if you have when I do anything on the weekend, you can never schedule. Yeah, it can be rough.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Since you're already that far into the game, I'm assuming we don't have to go that far into certain fundamentals or certain class stuff, maybe some account building stuff, but
yeah, it's mostly account building stuff.
Okay. Did you have any prepared questions that we can use as a guideline, or do we just go into the screenshots and kind of go from there?
Well, yeah, let's go for to the screenshots first.
All right, so first you have all of your Legion screenshots, I see.
Yes.
That's just slowly but surely moving its way up to 8k with events, I'm guessing, growth potions, that kind of thing.
Yes, and I'm pushing some when I don't feel like working on either of my boss mules or my main.
Yeah, and then and boss mule wise, where are you at with that?
One of them can do Lomian, 2 of them can do CRA. I'm only at 3 in total.
Yeah, so just those, like the top 4 here in the bottom of your Legion picture, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but you're enjoying those classes? Like it's fun enough to log in?
Shade, yes. Nightwalker felt like a mistake.
Okay. I've been hearing good things though, that they're really strong though, but it's just not your playstyle, or?
It's not particularly my playstyle, and it feels a little bit clunky to use even with a stronger computer.
Okay. And was one of these your Hyperburn, or?
Yes, the Nightwalker was my Hyperburn.
And that's why it's not finished, because you weren't really feeling it, I see.
Plus the hand injury.
Yeah, well, that can also come into play. So is it like for you can't play for long durations, or it's just hard to play at all, or?
It used to be hard to play at all, then it started building up that I can play again. But now I can finally do a WAP again.
So it is about like longer duration. It's not about like you didn't like break your hand, but it's more like RSI type thing or
sort
something.
Of, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Have you considered alternate? Not to like get you to play all the time, but if you want to play, have you considered alternate ways of playing, like with controller and stuff? If that helps at all.
I have considered it, but not on my main. I would consider it for the Paladin, definitely.
Yeah, because what was surprising to me is that I heard that people who play slightly more complicated characters actually are more likely to play on controller because of the repetition and stuff needed for keys. That you just find which keys you actually need the most, put those on a controller, and that actually helps them playing longer sessions. So like blasters, Aaron's, Thunderbreakers, Mercedes, that these are actually people who are more likely to play with controllers. Because when I would initially think about it, I would be like, oh yeah, I would be like a Pathfinder with a controller, so I can just lay back and just hold down the macro key and not even have to touch my keyboard. But it seems that people who are more like intensely playing and more that is actually kind of counterintuitive there. That it helps with,
especially due to Lara inputs.
So because of the ergonomic shape of the controller, that it helps not have any pain. But just floating that out there. I don't know if that has any merit for you. I don't know if you have one or know anyone who has a control that you could just try it and see if that helps you out.
It was a consideration, but considering the input of Lara, I just decided not to.
Okay. Right. And when you're training, your character doesn't have any like specific issues. You can train wherever you want. Lara, for mobbing, you're cool.
For mobbing, I'm starting to have struggles as well. I'm starting to have struggles one-shotting monsters at my level. Well, at Burnium.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because our sacred power is of course a big thing. So how are you doing on sacred power? How's that looking?
I'm on the verge of leveling up to 110. I need Meso.
Yeah, it gets pricey on the the sacreds themselves leveling. And so building up out the boss mules is probably going to be one of the more important things for you now, right? To bring up that weekly income.
Yeah.
And are there classes that you have played so far, gotten the 5th job advancement on, that you're thinking of, these are classes that you would consider playing?
Maybe the Luminous, maybe, because that's what I used to play when I played on Luna before the not Europe thing, the Dutch thing happened.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, that was... Oh, so you started on Reboot after, like, when that happened?
Yes.
I see. Yeah, that was, I remember the Dutch people kind of laughing at the Belgian people when they couldn't buy cubes anymore. But then Dutch people got shafted even harder than we ever did, so...
Yep.
Yeah, because... I don't know if that was karma for those people, but in general, just overall, pretty bad situation, yeah. I'm just hoping that more governments and more countries get on board so that companies have to fix the problems, not countries themselves, and then, have players that just can't really play a game at all. Because, Dutch players just can't play a non-reboot. It's just impossible. Yeah, so Lumi and any other... Because I always... It's a very common question for people to be like, how many boss moves do I make and when do I make them? But for me, usually the criterion is, do you have enough time for it? Like, do you find yourself having the time to play these characters? So, do you have the time, do you feel, to scale up on these?
Yes.
Because you're not doing those long grinding sessions.
Yes, and I don't have a job particularly.
Okay, so right now you can, you could, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank God there's Maple that you can have 49 jobs, right? You can have all the jobs in the world.
Yeah.
Or up to 54, yeah. You said Bowmaster as well?
Bowmaster and Mihail.
Yeah.
Oh, and Hoyoung, because of Kashyap's share.
Yeah, and Hoyoung is, early on I like it as well, just because of the iframes and the burst and the... I have a Hoyoung boss mule as well. Positive about that one. I've heard a lot of good things about the Bowmaster and the Mihail. I mean, we see some crazy things out of EU on the Mihails, right? But as long as you're timing properly and you know how the bosses work, you can immune most of the boss fights. So
yeah,
I mean, once you kind of know what you're doing with Maple, I think any character could be a boss mule. So I would just go off of the characters that you think you enjoy. I've drawn the analogy before of like buying clothes in the shop. Like if you don't like it in the shop, you're not going to wear it. So if you don't even like playing the character, I don't think you're going to want to log in to do the bosses. So take characters that you enjoy, maybe even make doubles if that's what it takes to get you to do the bosses. If you really like Lara, maybe make another Lara as a boss mule. Like, might seem
I wouldn't do that.
Okay, well,
I wouldn't do it again.
maybe not specifically a Lara, but like if there's one of them that you just like doing the bosses on, making a double, you have extra character slots anyway, so that could be a thing if that's what you need to get the motivation or the the drive to log into them and do them. But yeah, once you're training in Cernium and beyond, the money from training is pretty much gone. So Boss Mules is where it's at, or it's just endless hours of grinding. And since that's not your possibility here, Boss Mules would be the main thing to do. Yeah, I mean, you got your Ursus and your Maple Tour and all that, but that's not really bringing in the massive dozens of billions. Did you manage to get some Clover piggy banks at least?
Only at the beginning, but funds was a little bit tight, so I couldn't get the tool.
Yeah, tool was definitely a huge boost for the people who could afford that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Made it a whole lot easier. Without the tool, yeah, it's pretty rough. So you're mainly, yeah, we'll get into the details on what you're trying to upgrade for. But yeah, slowly building up boss mules. Of course, there's the value of the crystals, but mainly just doing more bosses gives you a lot of value inherently in the beginning in your cubes and stuff, and a little bit of flames, but mostly in cubes that you get, right? So you can slowly fund your characters, build up your characters' damage without spending the money directly. So that's a nice thing, but you need that, that kind of that cascade of value to start rolling at some point. But luckily we're getting a lot of level up potions and stuff like that, so you can also keep going at your level 230s to slowly work those up to 240, or at least a 235, so you get access to all the symbols. That's a bunch of free stat. And especially if you're still funding your account, I wouldn't rely too much on nodes and stuff. Yeah, usually what I do is I start with like a base of like 100 to 150 nodes and kind of just see where that gets me, and mostly focus on still doing some symbol dailies just to get some free levels and to get those free early stats up to like level 7, 8, 9. It's still really fast, and it gives you just a whole lot of stat if you add all of that up together. But you've got you've got all the links and a decent amount of level 3 links, I think, right?
The only thing is Demon Slayer.
Yeah. You got the Eva and the Mercedes.
Oh, and Phantom.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, and like Aaron and stuff like that, but it's only depends on how important you think that one is, right? Technically has one. Yeah, but then you'll be looking at like 7 boss mules, if I count it correctly. 1, 2.
Yes.
Yeah. That's already a decent amount. You can very easily get to like 11 crystals per character, right? So that would be 77, and your main's probably doing something like 16, 17, 18, 19 crystals?
I can do Gloom and Dark now.
Yeah, so you like solo normal?
Yes.
And then you do solo everything beyond that as well, or do like small party, Lucid Will?
Lucid Will I do in a party still. Vihela I'm trying to run the hard mode with my guild.
And then everything below that is just nuke it. Oh, and for slime, do you do that in party, like sea slime?
No, I do normal slime because it's more meso doing it alone.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll kind of depend on how you're looking at for the ring, right? If you're still looking for rings, because then you'd be looking at what kind of party do you make? Do you move? Because now you're kind of at the edge of like, do you start looking towards like a Chaos Tenebris party with Vihela, but then that could include Vihela, but also Sea Gloom, also Hard Darknell, also Chaos Slime, and maybe run them like 2 of the bosses one time with guild skills, then 2 and another time, something like that.
Sea Gloom we are running as well, but
is it clearing or?
It is genuinely a struggle.
Yeah.
I can feel the European ping from Sea Gloom.
Have you since the EU ping, well, you noticed like with the tool, but have you looked into Exilag? Have you ever tried that?
No, because tight funds and stuff. So I'm a little bit hesitant in trying out those things.
I see, okay. Yeah, because for my ping it did have a pretty good effect. But yeah, of course, if you don't have the resources, then can't do that. For me, it was about half my ping cut in half. So it did definitely reduce the amount of situations where I was like, oh, I pressed the button but it didn't go off kind of thing. And just in general, the game is smoother. You don't have to wait forever to loot and wait forever to sell items. Just everything is just a bit smoother and less frustrating. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you can do that, you can do that. I
mean, I can look into it, but I'm also like, this sounds weird, but I actually started on NA, moved to Europe, and then I moved back to NA again.
I mean, I guess it depends where. Like, why did you move initially? Was it just like the people that were there? Did you like join friends or?
My friends wanted to start Maple again on Luna.
I think that's,
you know, from the Netherlands, and I went there as well, and then I stayed, and they left, like they quit the game. So I stayed there until I got forced out, and like I can't go to REBOOT because that's dead, so I'm going to NA again.
Yeah, it's very relatable. I've heard that story a lot from people where they're like, "Oh, I was playing something else, and then my friends wanted to play Maple, so I joined them, and then everyone quits again because they're just game hopping." But some people are just more dedicated to the games, and then they always stay longer until they get dragged somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think Maplers have that problem probably more than anyone else, because I mean, if we're looking at how long this game has been around, if we're still playing Maple at this point, we've got some issues, but you know, we're just all in this together, I guess.
Yeah, I do gotta say though, early REBOOT was not exactly fun to play because of non-class based loot dropping. Like, you would run commerce and you see, for example, Phantom Cane drop on your Mercedes.
Yeah.
Then I was like, I'm gonna quit because this is not okay. Like, I miss trading, and now I've come back again.
Yeah, that was I mean, I don't remember exactly when they changed that, but yeah, that was very much a thing when you're running CPQ, and it was like, okay, you get this drop, you get that drop, everyone pet loot off, no yoinking, like, you know.
Yeah.
And then pet
now
loot
I'm back on NA. I'm actually enjoying the game way more though.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, are you enjoying the game? Because I know what you sounded a little bit defeated there. Like, you have to move around and then you have to restart every time, right? But you've got yourself already really big Legion built out, so I'm guessing you're at least enjoying your time a little bit.
Yeah, way more than on Europe, because there's actually a community here on NA as well.
I heard that it was okay in Europe, but you have to, I mean, if you don't mesh with the small community that there's there, then there's nothing else. But there's a bunch of different communities in NA, so you can always find something that you mesh with, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you found that. But yeah, so now your guild needs you to be a little bit bigger. So Legion and Link-wise, that's all common. Did you have any questions regarding like boss mules or Legion in general? Like account their classes?
Not really. I just included it because I saw it included in many of the other videos.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, cool. You have your matrix here. I don't know if you have any questions there. It seems like you're working on the right things. The only one I don't see here, but it might be on the other page, is your Urda's Will. Do you have that one? Are you starting to build that one up?
I didn't build that one up. Hold up, I'm gonna grab that real quick.
It's mainly for Chaos Tenebris and everything beyond. Just having the ability to like immune CCs and leveling it up to reduce the cooldown. Everyone has their own skill, right? But just having access to 2, and the further you go, the more matrix slots you get. So having access to 2 of those is very useful, especially Black Mage, you know, for curses and that kind of stuff. Especially in the beginning when you're starting to play. Once you get better at it, positioning, mechanics, all that stuff, you won't need them nearly as much. But then, because you don't need them nearly as much, there might be more situations where you're like, oh, now I can just press it and I don't have to worry at all. Whereas in the beginning, you'll want to use it every 20 seconds. But then you'll just get better, just like with every bosses. But for Black Mage, definitely it's a slower process. It's just Phase 1 and Phase 2 is pretty fine, but Phase 3 just has so much going on that it's like you're fighting all of the all of the Black Mage commanders at the same time, kind of. So, yeah, it takes a bit to get used to. Other than that, I guess if you're, usually say this to people, but if you're auto buffing, oh wait, do you have decent speed infusion on a glove, or do you not use that?
I do not use it.
Okay.
It doesn't really help much for my class.
Okay. Yeah, some classes might specifically want it more than others. So it just doesn't really... For your Spirit Sprinkle, doesn't it affect that?
I mean, it doesn't help much more than Dream Pot does, so...
But they stack together, right?
Yeah. Why did I remove it again? See? No. It's been a while ago since I did it.
Spirit Sprinkle is the only skill that really needs the attack speed, and it isn't enough of your damage to warrant using attack speed, and it really overpasses. You'll even be fine with 2 attack speed if you want to exclude DSI or Green Pot. Okay. Yeah, apparently it's more like a... I guess from what Seth put here, it's more like a preference kind of thing. So if you feel like you don't have enough slots, maybe finally people use it once you get to like 280 or something, and you literally have nothing else to put in your matrix, then people start using it. But yeah, as long as you don't feel like you're missing anything out, or that you're dying because your character is like locked in place for a little bit too long, then everything's fine, you know, as long as it fits with your playstyle, you're good.
Yeah, if I die, it's because I've been too greedy. Simple as that.
Yeah, that's a lot of the times that's what it is. At least Lara can sometimes just slam that teleport, right? And then maybe you teleport to some kind of vein nearby, and then hopefully get out of dodge.
Unless you teleport straight into an attack.
Yeah. That happens.
Or into a Lotus Laser, that's also something that happens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I usually have that with other characters, like with the Ho Young, where I slightly touch my arrow key during the animation of another skill, and then it like dashes the fake to the real attack, just dashes through the laser, and you're like, don't do that. That happens. The Lara teleport technically does go through, can go through the laser, right? But it's like a pretty small teleport, so it's probably a little bit riskier.
It goes through the laser, but it can also go straight across, depending on the input.
That's nice.
And also depending on what kind of vein. The unconstrained veins have priority, and the other ones don't. So if you press the wrong direction, you send yourself straight into the laser.
Okay, so not really. What I usually do is I just go up to side a little bit, and then flash jump through the middle and hold the shield thing to get to like 2 or 3 lasers at the same time, and then hopefully I kill it before the next time I need to do it. Yeah, because that's the one thing, right? You don't really have any true iframes. You've got the damage reduction with the shield, and you've got the ethereal form, but neither one is actually an iframe, right?
Nope.
And have you run into issues with that specifically, or like do you know other Laras that you sometimes talk about, like what to do in certain situations, or no?
Yeah, I'm on the Lara Discord, often asking questions. That's when I found out that I'm having a harder time in Gloom because my hands, because the hands get covered by the veins. Apparently, I was watching my one of my guildies doing
Through Darkness.
Yeah, and then I saw the hands, and I'm like, wait, that's how they look like?
Oh, you can't even see them. Yeah, the veins are completely non-transparent now, right?
Yes, and it's actually a pain in the ass also with Vihela.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm having to look a little bit above to see, and it's so bad.
Yeah, that's... Okay, now it's making a little more sense, yeah. The thing with the hands, though, as well, is that I think the extra will skill there will help you as well, if you see something, because you can also... not cure all of the things. I think the side to side you can cure, but some of the things you can cure or prevent. So this should at least help with some of the darknesses to not be as bad, hopefully. And then the other thing people do is like they just go up and blink and stay blinked in the air as long as possible, right? To ignore as much of the darkness as they can.
That is something I had figured out already.
You just try to do anything to not be on the ground, because yeah, death awaits you, especially if you can't really see where you can stand and where you can't. Yeah, so you're constantly like spamming that little, is it a third job skill, the one that just activates the veins just to get them away, to go away or something? Oh, you have to take off your toggle when it's darkness, maybe? And then just put the toggle back on?
But then I can't clear the seahorses.
Yeah, and those are only for you. Wow, you'd have to like micro your your toggle. Like, wait, if you activate the summons and then take off the toggle, the summons stay, right? You just don't get any new veins.
I have tried that actually.
Yeah, you maybe try fucking around with that in normal and see if you can.
Yeah,
see if you
I
can
should
do
try,
that.
or I just absorb.
Yeah, or absorb. Yeah, just keep it. But they come back just as quickly as you absorb them, pretty much, right?
I mean, I can absorb the veins and then remove them. That can also work.
But doesn't like a new one pop up then?
Yes, but if I disable the skill, then they don't pop up again.
Yeah, if you disable, yeah. Wait, if you disable, they still stay until you absorb them, and they just don't come back?
Hold up, I'm gonna try it real quick in game.
Because my hope would be that if you take the toggle off, that they just all disappear.
The veins disappear and the absorb stay.
Okay.
Which is basically the enhanced Essence Sprinkle.
Yeah, so you absorb, and then you only have Essence Sprinkle to clear, which is harder, but at least you can see the hands. And then as soon as you go up, you take the toggle back on, so you can put the summons back, I guess?
I think that will work.
It's not ideal, but at least it'd be a little bit of a workaround to just dying to random shit you can't see.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that being any kind of fun, yeah.
It's so terrible, man. It's so terrible.
I can imagine. Alright, so we got something new to try there. Nice little microing action going on. And then we see your stat window. Now the roast can begin. Guild, look at... Time for the guild to look at this.
I mean,
45.
I moved... So that's a little bit weird. My paladin is actually in the guild that I often talk to, and I'm planning to possibly move back on my main.
Oh, in a different guild?
Yeah.
So you're planning to leave Teal? Is that the official statement here?
Maybe.
Okay. So you want to get roasted by 2 guilds? That's the goal. Double the roast, get it over with in one go. So see your ID. So for the hyperstats, did you use a tool to build that?
No. Don't think so.
I think so, okay. So what kind of buffs are on here with this? This is with link skills on, decent sharp eyes on, I'm guessing?
Yes.
So with all the decents that are like auto buffed, right? But none of the crazy stuff.
None of the crazy stuff.
Okay. So with Maple Warrior?
Maple Warrior always.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and your inability is still very much a mobbing one. Is because the other thing is that once you're bossing, you'll start getting more on point. You know, the amount of money you make from your main already goes down. It's kind of up to you. But you know, passives +1 is really good for Lara. And that's also another question is, do you want to start moving away a little bit from like a mobbing inner ability and into a bossing inner ability? Because you're trying to do those more difficult bosses. That is one of the questions that, like specifically a Lara might have a little bit more insight on how much of your damage really goes up by switching there. I think for Lara it makes...
Something was said that it doesn't stack with combat orders.
So it for me it does, like on my arc. But the inner ability only only increases your passives, not all of your skills. So combat orders works on like all of your 4th job skills essentially, and then passives only on the passive ones. But Lara has like really big passives, right? It's very similar to my arc. That's why the passives +1 is so good. I think if you end up with passive +1, 7% damage to it's to normal monsters. I see. Yeah, I thought that was to the debuffed, because that would be really nice to have. Because that's really specifically just a mobbing inner ability. Don't worry though. Like I kept this on my arc for the longest time as well. I had Mezzo attack and then drop rate on my arc for a long time, and it is possible to play like that for sure. But my stat was a lot higher and Legion was bigger, so I was able to compensate with that. But to go back a little bit to the hyperstats, I think because like at 14, that seems so high, so expensive. And the IED, you don't have any other functional IED other than just like the regular Explorer Mage and boost nodes, right, on Lara?
I have the Lumi Link,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a 35% IED familiar.
And those are on in this picture? Or are they not on here?
No, the familiar was not on in this picture. I forgot.
Okay. Checklist 94, 35, on 6, 6, 1.8. So you get up to like 96 almost. Or just over 96, yeah.
Yeah, 96.
Yeah. Yeah, which is significantly better. And you have any bossing familiars as well? Or is it like healing? Yeah.
Healing, yes. Bossing, no.
Yeah. No, I'm in the same boat. No worries. Okay. Yeah, I wonder if a calculator would give you different numbers. Usually... is your ID that high? Well, we'll go into that. But is your ID that high? Do you have any lines on your WSE? Or like 1? So I'm thinking if you get into 96. None? Okay.
Lara goes 7-2, usually.
Yeah, I mean, if this is your ID without, then that makes sense, yeah. 7-2. Okay, so you're... Yeah, because your percentage damage isn't that high. Boss damage is decently high, but the percentage damage isn't, so your total wouldn't end up scaling. Because I'm looking at... The 14 crit damage probably makes sense, but the... You're at 90 with the thing... Yeah, when you're getting that high, I feel like... Yeah, I'd have to look at the numbers or throw in a calculator. But probably like the ID to 10 and the damage to 11 or even to 12 would be pretty cheap at this point. Is your crit rate exactly at 100% or is it a little bit over?
101.
Okay, yeah. It's always odd and then even in the hyperstats. I don't know how that works, but it just... you always have to go to like 99 or 101. I just... Always how that works. I guess the main thing is getting your 8k Legion, right? And then extra IED... whatever IED you're getting extra will just be from filling out your Legion and then doing that little bit of like the 2 points in the boss damage, right? Just wiggling those points around a little bit.
Yeah. It's a little bit awkward there because that's the only way I could make it fit.
Yeah, I love playing around with Legion blocks, so I could probably make it fit perfectly, but my autism loves solving that kind of stuff, so that's really fun for me. But I guess what do you have you have a level 200 thief block overlapping with a 200 warrior block there, right?
Yeah.
And that mage block next to it is the cross? No, it's not the cross. It's a T shape. So I usually put that one in the corner because it fits that. It's like the Tetris T shape. Fits that better. Doodle-doo. And then you could put the warrior block one to the left. And then curve the thief around it. And then slide the pirate piece down. And then the other pirate piece horizontally. That will already look decent, I think. But yeah, that's just two boss damage there. And the crit is fit to... Yeah. And you have one little extra block in magic attack that will eventually go into... But yeah, the main thing is once you get 8k, you get 5 extra pieces in. Should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that should perfectly fill out the IED, right? IED and crit damage. Magic attack, intellect, connect. Crit rate would stay at 5. Oh no, it's at 10. Yeah, 10 because it's one higher. And then fill out the boss damage. That's already would be really pretty, really respectable Legion. Yeah, other than that, I guess your stat is at 45, so I think that makes sense to hear what you're doing, your output for damage and everything. Because you're mainly burst, so your overall DPM gets, crushed down a little bit once you're off bursting, right? Even though...
It's a bit of 50-50 for Lara.
Mm-hmm. You got decent burst, but do you know, like, in which situations... because they tried to equalize, right, between absorbing and empowering the things.
It is only eruption.
Is it still the same? Because they moved around the numbers. Because I thought they wanted to make it like
It's still
do the same damage.
It's 3 eruptions. You can't do anything else. So an absorb is no longer.
Okay, so you have to keep the summons up, which
Yes.
means that a lot of times the only veins that you have are far away. So you have to go far away for the stretch then to activate them. So you keep the summons close again. Stretch is a lot of damage though, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of damage for the short cooldown it has.
Yeah. Yeah, I like plopping a stretch and watching a boss just evaporate. That's cool stuff. Damage boss. Yeah, looks fine. Yeah, invulnerability should be able to be left like that without being any kind of problem. Arcane power is at 1320. But that's with like the guild stuff, right? So you're not maxed there yet,
Yes.
Arcane power? Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned you haven't been playing for like ever yet, so that makes sense. But that's like, what is that, last 3 levels, 4 levels or something?
3 levels. I can't be arsed to Esfera anymore. I can't.
Come on, you're almost there. Home stretch.
No, I'm gonna wait till Savior. I can't deal with it. It's so bad.
Yeah, you have to put a line in the sand sometimes and focus on other things. Yeah. Keep your sanity. And yeah, Sacred Power again. Like that's just time gated there. Sacred Power will be nice for damage, but I guess the main thing is to see how we can get you some stat. But also stat isn't everything, because of course magic attack will be a huge factor. So high Star Force. Star Force at 360. So if you look at
360 with Event Ring.
Yeah. Okay. And have you looked into Oz at all?
Yes, I have started doing Oz a little bit.
Yeah, because if you are going to replace an event ring with a damage ring, it might cost a lot of money. But if you're going to, replace it straight up with an Oz ring, then you save all that money. Plus, Oz 3 minutes synchronizes with your big burst, so that would actually improve your damage a lot. So if Oz is something you're not completely against, and something you can do with your hand, then that would help you a lot in increasing your damage.
I can do it. The issue is I can never ring swap due to how Nexon coded my class.
Is it because of the does this stuff still cover everything? The veins?
The veins, the eruptions basically make it so you can't ring swap.
Wait, so you can't what?
The eruptions make it so you can't ring swap. You can't ring swap when they're up.
Oh, you're like in combat, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, I play my arc without ring swapping as well, even though I have a 2-minute burst now. So it's obviously horribly inefficient. But yeah, once you're liberated, you'll just be able to pop the iframe. But you have to wait until all the summons are off. So that counts as being in combat actively. That's great.
Thanks, Nexon.
Yeah. Oh, Nexon says you're welcome. So let's see, 360 here, which is not out of character, especially not if you have one event ring in there. Legion is getting close, because I'm how familiar are you with the commands that I have?
Not very familiar.
Okay, so I have about I don't know, 230 or something. I'm a little disappointed you haven't seen all of them and committed them to mind yet, but I guess I'll forgive you for this one time. This is one of the biggest ones I have that I think is the most useful in general to kind of see where does damage come from and how can you spend your time in a way that gives you the best return for your time spent. And we can see that you're 272, so you're just, according to my beautiful grid here, just starting into the end game, right? So you'd be looking at these numbers roughly for your account, but I think they line up pretty well, right? So like stat wise, you're a little bit under. So I'm assuming that's a little bit Star Force, a little bit potentials, most likely. yeah, this takes into account like pitch and everything, right? Because then your stat goes up a lot, but that's to compensate for the loss of IED and boss damage in the Superior Golic set. So it's a little bit of artificially boosting your stat at that point. The IED is at 96 where you're at. Boss damage total at just over 400, right? 415. So that's good. Crit rate at 100. Legion is very close to 8k. Star Force, yeah. So I mean, one extra ring would be like, you put you at like 379 or 380. So that's really close as well. That's just one ring off basically. So it's probably mostly potentials and a little bit in, but like Sacred Power starting is still really low here. Why is this 1140 at least? Oh, that's an interesting range. Depends on how quickly people level, of course. Flames, maybe? We'll have to look at that. Your boost nodes we already looked at. Skill nodes we already looked at. That's all good. And then weapon flames and stuff like that. Are you good on flames and all of these individual things? On how they work?
I'm not too familiar with flames, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we can talk about that a little bit. Basically, all of these systems hinge on a balance of accessibility and cost, right? Cost, of course, being one of the determinants of accessibility, time being the other one. Whenever you're looking at how far do you upgrade something, it's always how much do you have access to the things that can be upgraded, how much do you have access to the thing that you can upgrade with, and yes, I know, I just closed you, bitch. And stupid Windows update. And how long are you going to hold on to an item? If you're going to hold on to an item for a very long time, you might want to upgrade it a little bit further so that you get more value out of it. If you're going to replace it soon, you don't upgrade it as much, right? These are things that factor into where do you upgrade and when do you push. The thing with flames is that a lot of the times you're focusing mostly on Star Force because there's an event coming, or you're waiting for backups and you have backups, or you're just cubing because it's a known system. You see the percentages, you see the stat go up, and it is a good system. And overall, it represents a bigger part of your damage increase. Flames predominantly, I would say the most important part for flaming is getting a good flame on your weapon, and getting a good flame on items that you're transposing. Because transposing, of course, is you're more future planning, so you're keeping them longer, so you want to get a higher, you want to fund them more, and as a result, you'll spend more of your flaming. Most of the time, like if we talk about like a year or 2 years ago, we would get way more flames from weekly bosses, so you would use them more, and it would be a little bit more important. Now it's really, flaming I would say is really a thing once your gear starts kind of settling. So if most of your stuff is like 21 star, and the potential is already at like, at least I would say like 2.5 line, then you can start really min-maxing with flames and start getting like decent value. So when we're looking at flames, we're looking in the same way at Star Forcing and at cubing. We're looking at how much money do you put in for how much stat do you get back. So the thing that we use is flame score to kind of give you just one number so you can see how good is a flame. The flame score represents how much is the equivalent of main stat. So if you would have a flame score that's 100 and it has 100 intellect for you, and that's it, then it would be 100. But it could also be 80 intellect and, for example, in your situation, it could be like something like 4 weapon attack, 4 magic attack, and like 80 luck or something. That would also come to 100. So that way you can know that those are roughly equivalent. And that's based on, you know, how much intellect, how much percentage, this and that, how much weapon, magic attack, all of that stuff. How much do you typically have in these stages? That balance kind of informs how do all the stats that give you any kind of damage, how do those compare to each other? And percentage all stat being a big one there, right? Like if you have 7% all stat and 30 main stat and a little bit of magic attack, like is that better or is that worse? You can look at range, but of course you know that range, you know, switches every single time you switch and equip. So the reason we look at the flame score is that it future proofs. It looks at how much stat will you have at a certain stage, how much money will you be spending on other stuff, and what is a reasonable flame score to aim for. So that's kind of where that number comes from. So there's calculators that you can use to calculate the cost, and there's calculators that you can use to calculate your current score. If you're unfamiliar, you can find those under !flames. So score calculator is very straightforward. You have a piece, you can put in the the score. If you were to look at your, well, maybe not at the Berserk, because I don't think you've worked on that very much.
I boomed one under pressure of my guild.
Lovely, yeah. Always love it when other people make decisions for you on your rare equips. It's always a good time.
They're like, oh yeah, you have 2 of them. Come on, send it.
Yeah, they'll boom regardless. I mean,
yeah.
Even if other people pressure or not, sometimes maybe you need the motivation. But yeah, I'm up there with you. I've boomed 7 pitch so far. No 22s, feels good. Looking at the block. Oh, so if you look at the cape, for example, you can see. So there's no luck, so you don't have to worry about that. So here you put like what stage of the game you're in. We're going for endgame, right? That's where we are. You can see that here. And then main class is int class. You're not any of the other special classes. Some classes have multiple secondary stats, for example, so they're scaled differently off of different things. And if it's just a, because flame score is such a one number, once you get very high, if you're looking for just like 5 flame score more, it could become a lot of money. So it's important that you use somewhat accurate numbers, because just the rounding error already on like a multiplier could already make that difference between like 5 flame score, and then suddenly you'll be looking at completely different costs and completely different priorities. That's why also when people get closer and closer to endgame, it might be even better to just ask people who are completely, who are like 60k stat, 70k stat, like going towards that, to be like, how much is it for you? Because it could slightly be different again, and then again, that rounding error could make it. Could make a certain flame that you think could still use an upgrade actually be better for you eventually, It's tough to say because people get very, very strong. And the balance of all the stats keeps changing. Now we have the Eternal Gear, so people who are going to start using that, they might get way more weapon attack, which means relatively their weapon attack might go down in value, but then their intellect goes up a little bit, and, it's always a balance. So let's say the cape is at 91, and was it at 6, I think? Or was it 5? I forget. No, 5. Bing. So you can click calculate, so you can see it's 136. If you want to, you can put it here. You can put like cape, save, boom. And then you can do that with all of your items, so you can kind of compare them, apples to apples instead of apples to oranges. And with that, you can see very clearly like what is the priority of what flame do I want to work on first, because then you can look here, you can look at the numbers, and you can look at what has the most improvement. So the non-advantage, are you familiar with the difference between flame advantage and no flame advantage?
No. I know that Galaxy Gear is not advantage, same for Commercy.
Yeah, so it's...
But it can be transposed for Commercy.
Yeah, and then because your source item does have flame advantage, you can get a flame advantage flame on a non-flame advantage item, but it also means you can't ever reflame it, because then you ruin the flame, right? Because you'll only get bad results back. So it's basically those items. Yeah, there's a few other items. There is a list somewhere of like all the items that have flame advantage. So if it's not on the list, then you know it doesn't have flame advantage. But you can very quickly see advantage flames always give you 4 lines of stat that do something. So this is a tier 5 jump, a tier 5 magic attack, and this looks like it's a little weird. It's like a 9. So these are separate ones. You can see they're both divisible by 9. So this is a tier 4 intellect and a tier 5 strength. Those are the 4 different lines on this one. But because, figuring that out and doing the math, and like, especially once you start working with stats that are like compounded stats, right? So this is probably a 44 by itself. This is tier 4 strength. That's a tier, I think it's, is it 9? No, it's gotta be 6. Yeah, so it's tier 6 dex and int. So 91 minus 36 leaves 55. So it's a tier 5 intellect as well. Right, but because that's so much work and thinking about all of that, that's why you just use the flame score. So you just have one number, and then you go off that one number, and you don't have to do the maths on. Yeah, and it's like, oh, how easy is it to roll over a 5-4, 5-6 with other stats with the same? Just throw it into a calculator and let that thing, do its work, so you don't have to break your head over it. It's not, not efficient in that way. But this way you can check, like, what is my flame score now? What flame score do I eventually want to go to? Yeah, with Arcane, it's a little bit sky's the limit. I would say, you know, once you're going towards 275, towards 280, as long as everything is, like, hovering around, like, 140-ish is probably fine. So right now, with this, you're at, like, 136. I would just kind of, like, try to frog leap your lowest ones up just slowly and steadily until it's no longer the lowest one, and then just go back to the lowest. And you'll probably ruin the flame for, like, a few weeks on one item until eventually it gets something nicer, and then you move to the next one. Once it's around 140, it gets pretty difficult to improve it. So if you're looking at armor, 200 plus, this is typically at least a 9, not 91. 3 for attack, 10 secondary stat for 1 main stat. You're looking for around 140. It's already going to be, yeah, like 4 to 6 built. But if you go a lot lower, like where your cape is at, it's immediately like, you know, it's like only 2/3 of that. So once you get to that point, like people go for 145, it starts going up a lot. People go into like the 160s to get some crazy stuff. Like this is a lot of value per flame, right? It doesn't make any sense to really go that hard. So usually starting out in the beginning at least is around a 125 and then 135 where you're at, and then anything slightly above that is cool. But yeah, so this way you can kind of keep track of what flame score are you aiming for, and is everything kind of at the point where it wants to be.
Now I understand the calculator, because I was scratching my head like this doesn't make sense from my view.
Mm-hmm. So you have your earrings 2 and 4. So you could do earring save. Yeah, so that one's at 30 now. So if you look at the calculator, I think you end up, yeah, you could probably make some gains here. But you're looking at like the true number of gains, right? So how much can you gain on the earring? 18. Let's say that you have an arcane weapon, arcane item that's like at 110 now. It might even be easier to gain 18 there to go for like 128 if it's at like 110 versus 30 to 48 on a 150, and then take off the flame advantage here. See, it's about the same. So that way you can kind of see what would cause more money. And you can look at the bottom as well, like how many flames would it be, right? So powerful flames. If you want to use eternal flames, you can change this to eternal flames here. Wouldn't have a money cost, of course, because you can't buy them. You can have a rough estimate of like how many flames you can use and the percentiles and everything. Just have somewhat of a guide for it. Okay, but flames make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense now.
Okay, cool. Any other things that you had regarding to the stat window where you had any questions maybe? Or anything I said you're wondering about? No. Okay, cool. So we can look at the equips specifically. This is all the relevant backups you have right now?
Yes.
Okay. So you have the tower boost ring. That's nice. You can get some more Oz points. All the little bits help there.
Definitely.
Yep. And you're in 17 arcane. Let me just scroll through everything. So this is not what you're actively using, right? That's just
yeah,
back up the berserk.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, got the heart. We already saw the cape. And then double boss magic attack on this one, yeah. And then double prime. Yeah, you don't really want to like rolling out of that. Glove is 21. Okay, nice, nice. What's your process with your arcanes at this point?
I'm currently saving them up for another big Starforce event.
Mm-hmm.
The glove and the shoulder were hit during Shining.
Right, okay. So you're trying to do like big jump 17 to 21 one go during Shining, or maybe during a 5-10-15 if Shining takes too long?
Yes.
Okay.
If I have the spares.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, at this point, you've probably been doing Lucid and Will for so long that you kind of have quote-unquote infinite spares, right? You could technically make them, but that's pretty expensive. So you're looking for drops.
I could technically make them, but...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you'd more likely want the drops to cut the cost a little bit. Kind of see it as a sign if you don't get any drops, then maybe you shouldn't be pushing yet, kind of thing. Access 3. Yeah, and you're, of course, full-blown and pitched waiting room, which is a lovely place to be. Speaking of which, what would you aim for with your pitch to switch out? Like, what is your vision on that?
Well, my Twilight Mark would likely get switched out if my Berserk hits.
It's what?
Well, if it hits 21, 22.
Well, I think it's pretty important to know what number you're aiming for there, because at this point, a 19 would also already be a nice upgrade. So you could also say, like, I'm going to get my Berserk to 19. If it does, I'm going to send my Twilight Mark. If the Twilight Mark goes to 20 or 21, I'm going to do the Berserk again. If it doesn't, then I switch over, something like that.
If I had known that, I would have stopped at 19, and then would have not have boomed.
Well, yeah, because 19 is pretty free. Like, most of the items will see 19, but past 19 is where it gets really, really tricky. So, with you know, armed with the knowledge of pitched boss can actually boom and probably will, what is your access at this point to, like, extra Twilight Marks?
It's actually pretty free if we don't give out a carry to people.
You mean like people yoink it, or?
No, my party occasionally takes people along, and then we gave out the Twilight Mark. Because I am waiting on my Zerg, basically. But
yeah.
I can also start picking up Twilight Marks.
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? You'll much more likely hit like a 21 or a 22 Twilight Mark, and of course you just want to hit the 21 Berserk and save that money, but you're also trying to get into Black Mage and start that rolling, and that's a whole 8-month process. So are you going to slow down yourself getting into Black Mage, which is taking another 8 months, to try to save some money on the Berserk upgrade, right? Because I think at this point, you're trying to squeeze more damage out of the things you already have, out of your current situation, so that you can get that ball rolling, and then you can always, you know, start working on Berserk later. Like, if you right now have a 21 Twilight Mark, I would say, yeah, any Berserk you get, you try to get it to 21 or to 22 before you even consider switching over, otherwise it's not worth the investment. Because if you get a Berserk, you also have to work on the Dawn Pendant, right? Because you break your set. Maybe it'll still be an increase, but you're going to break your Dawn set, so you'll want to get the Dawn Pendant in there as well, which, you know, getting Dawn Pendant backups is already hard enough, and you're only just starting up Ferris Hilla, so you don't have a whole bunch of those. So that's a whole other kind of worms that goes together with that. Yeah, and a lot of people are like, you know, an equip isn't an equip unless it's 22, and if you're 21, you're just like a pussy or something. I'd gladly be like a 21 full gamer and be able to do all the content in the game just fine, rather than try to tap for 22 and be one of the unlucky people who just ends up booming everything and never gets to 22. Because you can do everything in the game at 21. It's just faster at 22. But I don't think it's, for most people, reasonable to go for 22 unless you're already at 21, because then you have that safety net, right? So that's why I was also asking, like, with your arcanes, like, how are you going? Are you going for 17 to 21 straight up? Because one thing you could also do is be like, oh, every time you get a backup, you could also try to tap from 17 up to 19 once something is still in the box. Because then if it's still in the box and you succeed up to 19, well, now you can hold the box as a backup for another thing, because you've got a universal backup while nothing is boomed, because then the box can turn into any armor. But that depends on your income, right? And since you're with the bossing, I respect the decision totally to go 17 to 21, wait for Shining or 5 to 15s, and just hold the backups. But there is a possibility...
Time is an issue because Black Mage is going further and further away, basically.
Yeah.
And it's an 8-month thing.
Yeah, it's I mean, once you're doing it and you're playing it, it's like oh my god, I can't believe it's already time to liberate. But yeah, 8 months is is a long ass time, and all of the little things that that can gain some damage, like getting the arcanes up from 17 to 19. Again, 19 is pretty free in terms of not booming, but it can also not be. But let's say that you do wait until the next event, and then you finally, you know, maybe it's like another month or a month and a half before we get a 5 to 15, who knows, and then you do get them to 21. Let's say you didn't get any booms during the event. Now you have like 2 arcane backups. Is that going to start luring you into trying to go for 22? Is it still going to fill up your inventory? You know, those could have been other backups for the other one. Maybe the other one booms twice and never goes to 21. You know, like there's other scenarios there, but of course your financial decision for your in-game determines what would be a good idea. If you don't have the income right now to just tap whenever you get an arcane to try to get to 19, then of course don't do that. But again, that's why we were talking about the bossing mules and all of that stuff. It's a good idea to get your weekly income up so that whenever you do get a box, you can start taking those slightly more risky upgrades that in the long term will benefit you more. Because if you can get your arcanes now up to 19, because with one box, and then they go up to 19, then you can still pick whichever backup you want for 19 to 21. But in the meantime, you've gained 4 stars, right? Because you have 2 items at 17, I think. Yeah, the shoes and the cape.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Because even just those 4 stars combined is like, what is it, like 60 stat and 60 attack or something, or a little bit more than that. Like that's huge to have that all the time, and it's one of the things that you can gain. So that's why I would look at the Twilight Mark in the same way. Like you have a Berserk. If Berserk goes to 19, I would probably have at least 1 Twilight Mark backup, right? So even if you are carrying other people, I would talk to your party about, hey, I'm still only 17 Twilight, and Berserk is like, you know, very insecure, so I would still like backups. And if they say no to that, maybe look into like duoing or something, Twilight Mark, or Hard Lucid, Hard Will. Because if you... I'm kind of the same, like I'm saying this, but I'm also not very like selfish with those drops and everything. But if you're always kind of letting the party go in favor of like your own progress, you're never gonna, I mean, it's gonna take forever. It's gonna maybe take another 6 months or a year before you can even start Black Mage, and then another 8 months. It's like, yeah, it's gonna take forever. So you could be like, I need damage now. Berserk is, you know, it's a shit show, and I want to have another Twilight Mark to be able to commit to that, you know. And they should be okay with that.
My party has given me priority in the book, though, if it ever drops.
Yeah, but it's so empty because those things don't exist. Yeah. So I would.
No.
Twilight Mark is a Twilight Mark is common enough. You should be able to get at least 1 more Twilight Mark.
I'll bring it up in my party, and I don't think they will be against it.
No, they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. Especially not if the last 3 or 4 you didn't get, then they'll be like, oh yeah, totally, you're in your 270s and you want one to upgrade.
Make it maybe like 15.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of them drop.
Then maybe the next 2 or 3 should be yours. Because the one thing is, like, I don't know if... Do I have a 21? Yeah, I have a 21 on my character here. 21 is... base, 99 stat, and 68 attack. Yeah, so that's like 30 stat, 40 plus a magic attack. You know... compounding all of these things together, even just to a 21, like that's a lot, right? And it's all of these things together. Like I said, like your stat isn't that low. Maybe you'll get like 2 or 3k more stat just from working on some potentials, but a lot of it is probably magic attack that's just missing. And it's kind of an invisible one. That's why it's cool that in Korea they finally added magic attack as a stat in your stat window, because then you can really see that it might seem like you're really, really close in Star Force. Maybe you're missing 10 stars, but if those 10 stars are like 20 and 21 on 5 items, then every single one of those stars is like 19 attack or something. So missing 10 stars is like 190 magic attack. Like that's like, well, not quite for mages, but that's like half a weapon almost, or like a third of a weapon that you're missing. That's pretty massive, yeah. And you don't see that in your, you might see it in your range, but you know, range goes all over the place, so I don't really know mentally what my range is supposed to be. You don't see it in your stat, but you'll definitely see it in your kill speed. Yeah, so I would definitely push for that. And then if you have at least 1 more Twilight Mark, maybe 2, and there is an event, I would, personally for me, I would try the Berserk. If Berserk hits 19, then I would definitely go into the Twilight Mark, get that to 21 at least. If that hits 21, then go back into the Berserk and see if you can tap 20, maybe 21. If you get 21 Berserk, I probably switch to it. If the Berserk booms, which probably happens, then you still have a 21 Twilight Mark. That way you can kind of use another equip in the same slot as a backup, just to increase your chances and lower your risk.
Yeah.
If the Berserk does go, I wouldn't invest into it yet, but first you have to probably work on the Dawn Pendant, right? So
definitely, yes.
Then definitely push on Varusilla for that time to kind of open that path and see if you can wiggle your way into loot for the for the Dawn Pendant. But the lucky thing with the Dawn Pendant is because of its situation, it's really all or nothing, so you can just like freely tap that whenever. But again, to give you that freedom, you need to work on the bossing mules, increase the weekly income, right? So that whenever you do get a drop, you can just immediately commit to it. Because if the first one works, then you can stop, you can write yourself out of the rotation for the drop, and you can immediately move on to the next project. If you're slower with that, you might need like 3 or 4 or 5 backups, right? And then it's just always silly if the first one ends up working, you're like, fuck, now I have like 4 dead pendants that someone else could have been using, you know, or or that could have been my priority for the source instead that I wanted, you know. That's but the potential is nice, and the flame is decent as well, right? Well, I say decent. Flame is really good. Again, you could throw that in the calculator. 64 and 16 and what was it? 4 and 6. Yeah.
Yes, 4 and 6.
Yeah, so that's a 131.6. So that's like almost at the value of your cape, right? But it's a way lower level item. It's a level 140 item versus a level 200. So comparatively, this is a way more valuable flame. If we round that up to 132, 140, 22, powerful, calculate. What's going on here? Oh, I have flame advantage turn off, right? That's why it's saying infinity money, because it's literally impossible. Yes, this is 100 to 140 bill worth flame. Just like comparison-wise, right? So if you're talking about like how valuable is an item, that potential comparative to the Star Force on it is worth like nothing compared to how good that flame is. So that puts a little bit into perspective how much you can upgrade other stuff. CRA is still at 21. That makes total sense. That's probably like the last push also on CRA if your arcane goes that you tap that to 22, right? If you make enough money.
Yes. I have enough spares. I don't think I'll run out.
You think? No, yeah, no, you probably won't. But some people, I think the last time I went to 22 on my hat, I think I boomed 28 times. It's just, it's wild. It can go, it can go either way. You can go to 1 tap and be done, and or you can boom forever. But you know, at least you clean up a little bit of inventory space. You know, it's you get to clear your space out. Superior at 20, I like that. Those are good decisions usually. Those are self-made decisions, not made by people yelling at you in a Discord. I always applaud those decisions.
I mean, I can't tap it, I'm not gonna take the risk.
Yeah. Do you have any superior belts or earrings?
I have 2 of them. I have 2 belts, and I have 3 earrings.
Yeah. Wait, one of those earrings is... Oh, here. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay. And that trace, is that a reinforced?
4, or... That's reinforced, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, makes total sense. The fact that my guess was right means you made the right decision, okay? That's what that means. And the earring here is at double prime, yeah. And shoes, 97.6, yeah. Too bad for that luck line on the bottom. Could have been so nice. And the pot. Yeah, and using the black bean mark. Yeah, that's also something that can definitely get some upgrade. But yeah, eye patch, keck. Yeah, and flaming on a 135. It wouldn't go too much higher than that. Potential-wise, maybe. Weapon. Oh. Sorry?
No, I thought I double posted, but...
Oh, no, I think I didn't scroll far enough and then just started looking at the things all over again. No, that was me. Weapon, yeah, again, double prime, so... Do you... Okay, wild guess, but since I see a lot of double primes, do you black cube often? Or are these just lucky red cube rolls?
Those were lucky red cube rolls.
Okay. Okay. Because I was noticing with someone that they said they weren't progressing very quickly and they ended up... It was because they were black cubing everything that was 2-line because they didn't want to lose the 2-line, so they ended up with a lot of double prime lines, which is slightly better, but then you're really stuck and then you definitely don't want to roll over double prime.
Yeah, that's basically what I've run into with my emblem and my weapon.
Yeah, and like, so... Yeah, the advice there is just... Once you make it to all of your stuff being 21 stars and your accessories at least being like 2.5 lines, you just start working on really big projects, and then it's just time to wait until you have enough money, or until there's a cube sale, and just mass red cube over it and just turn your brain off and just, you know, surrender to it, and it just kind of has to happen.
Yes, I'm basically waiting for that moment.
Yeah, nothing else you can really do but that in that moment. Yeah. Oh, you got a little bit ID on the weapon as well. Yeah, flame is fine. Tier 6 with a tier 4 boss and extra intellect, so that's totally cool too. You can see that here, right? So you're looking at like a tier 6 plus plus or a tier 7. So what you have now is, I would consider tier 6 plus at least, like a plus and a half or something. Like it's almost there, I would say. But again, if you're looking towards Black Mage, if you can meet those requirements for Black Mage without it, then don't go, you know, anywhere on that, and then just to hold that until Genesis for sure. You're using a Dominator Pendant. Okay, and you decided not to transpose Sweetwater stuff, not your thing.
You can't get me into Commercy.
No Sweetwater stuff at all.
What I had to do on regular was basically Commercy for money, and like you can't get me back in there. Okay,
so you're allergic to seawater, I see.
Yes. Ironic, since I'm Dutch.
Yeah, Zeebene. Okay. Yeah, and the other pendant is 17, but not maxed out on the potential, so that's good. Yeah, because that'll be the big jump here. Well, it's good that you have that Dominator, because now you can just work on the Berserk. The Berserk works, then you work on the Dom Pendant, and then once the Dom Pendant works, you just transfer hammer this Dominator Pendant into your Superior, and then you have a 20 Superior. Boom. And then you equip 20 Superior and the Dom Pendant and the Berserk, and you're good. Or you wait for the Source drop, and then you transfer it into the Superior, and then tap the 21, and then into the Source. But then you need to, yeah, and then you have the Dom Pendant and the Source. Good stuff, right? See, it is still future-proof. You're just one step ahead. It's fine. Just skipping a step. Okay. And then you're using the Tenebris. Yeah. I'm seeing so many double primes. I'm inclined to think that you at least black cubed a little bit, but
nope.
I guess they're just all lucky reds.
Yeah.
21 kind of treasure. Superior is same situation as the pendant. Yeah. Yeah, so the main thing is, yeah, your potentials on your items that you're still transfer hammering are not completely done, so that all makes sense. Yeah, don't guard your ring. So you have one slime ring, and that's this one, right?
I had another one, and then I boomed it, and then became this one.
Yeah, because there's two options with the Dawn Ring, right? If you are getting into Sea Slime and you're into the rotation for the ring, again, you hope that you're in the party with people who just tap, 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 so that when they get a ring, they tap it immediately. So if they get to 22, they're done. And then they're out of the rotation. Sometimes out of the party, but at least out of the rotation. So that you can be higher up in the party. If you have access to rings, always just Star Force on the ring, and then eventually you'll get it and it'll be fine. If you don't, you're going to have to go through Golok's ring, right, and to transfer hammer in. If you're doing the second way, then make sure you don't push the potential. The reason I'm mentioning it all is because I think there's definitely some early gains that can be made, at least to some of the potential. Mainly just the accessories, right? Getting the accessories to 2.5 lines, especially the ones that you're not going to be transfer hammering, is still probably in the short term the easier thing to do. But in general, so with all of this in mind, I would say priority number 1 is to get those boss mules up and running. And fund-wise, I would more direct more funds towards that. That might make it possibly happen that a 5, 10, 15 comes around and you don't have as much money there. I would say if 5, 10, 15 does come around and you're still busy on funding all your boss mules, I would say just try to get the 2 arcanes to 19 and just leave that. Maybe the Berserk, right? And that's like the only things you touch on, and everything else just kind of pauses until shining. Because you need to get that weekly money up, not just for making sure that whenever Twilight comes you have like 100 bill instead of like 40 or something, but also that whenever a box shows up or whenever an opportunity shows up on a 5, 10, 15, that you can always at least try something. Because, you know, if something works, then that's a project you can cross off the list, and you don't have to constantly do dailies, do weeklies there for when the project comes, right? Because you might end up with an account that's done just like everyone else, but you end up with an account with like well, maybe not in your case, but with like a few thousand extra dineros, with like a few thousand extra Gollux coins, with like 6 extra Twilight marks sitting in your inventory, right? You end up with an account like that that's safer, which that's something that would happen to me. But that's more because I am funding a lot of different accounts, a lot of different characters. So I'm trying to make that progress on all of these different characters. But if you can focus on one, you want that money to be able to dedicate to your projects when you have the opportunity, so that you can cross projects off the list and you don't constantly have everything looming over your head like, oh, you have to wait, think about this, think about this, think about this, because that frees up time as well to do more weeklies and to train a little bit more, rather than to always be doing all the dailies and the weeklies.
Yeah, because I am feeling it looming over me and I'm just feeling stuck. That's why I
Yeah, so that's why some of the items is just like, okay, you see the Berserk, okay, next 5, 10, 15 at best, okay, boom. What else do you need? Twilight marks, so Hard Lucid Hard Will Party, ask for Twilight mark prior there, cool. Fairy Heart, done, cool. Cape, maybe if there's a 5, 10, 15, but only once your boss mules are funded up, then maybe during a 5, 10, 15 try to tap to 19, otherwise wait for Shining and go for 21, cool. Potential, maybe, but I would work on that after it's 19 at least, unless... So I would say go for 19 first, then work on potential, then go for 21, unless Shining is close after you get it to 19, or you're getting it to 19 and 21 together during Shining, then work on the potential after 21. Secondary, that's something that's kind of up to you, but it would depend on... it should be fine. Probably the only thing you should work on is the emblem now, right? And then the secondary can stay like this, and your weapon can stay the way that it is, and that should be fine. Emblem is usually, it's 30 bill off event, 40 bill on event. So like I said, typically that's when everything is 21. All the potentials on the, probably all of your potentials are just 2.5 lined. The only thing I'd prioritize what you have just before this would be like going for double crit damage on gloves. Over what you have now, because it would still be better. And then the next after that would, well, hopefully be your weapon as the Genesis weapon, if you get to that. If you don't get to that by this point, then it would be the emblem to go for 30. Even if you do hit 2-line magic attack and 1-line IED, even though you technically don't need that, it'd probably still be better. Especially if you can get some boss fams by then, right? And if you can wiggle those in.
Yeah.
Glove, yeah, so glove, only thing would be like a slightly better flame probably over time, what we talked about with the flame thing, and then the double critical damage, but I would do that after all of your stuff is 21, everything else is at least 2.5 lined. Shoulder, well, you don't have to think about the flame, so that's nice, but it'll basically be in the same group as the cape when it comes to the potential. The earring is probably something that you could cube a little bit early, but I would say only if you have the funds. So I would check how all of the boss muling goes, and if that kind of eats up your money, then that's fine. If you have leftover, like I said, maybe 2.5 lining accessories that have that don't transfer hammer anymore. So that would be the superior earring, and it would be the probably the black beam mark. And then one more, I think, right? Oh no, not the, yeah, and then maybe the slime ring, but that would depend on how you are planning to, if you can get access to a party. I did normal a lot and ended up getting drops from normal. If that ends up happening, then that puts you in a luxurious position as well. If you start getting these drops and you have like 3, 4, 5 more before you even see Shining, then you can be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna work on this potential, right? Because I'm gonna Star Force on the ring. But if you don't get any drops, you're more likely to have to go through transfer, so then you don't work on the potential. That's pretty straightforward there. Yeah, and the Spirit Gollux and the Independent are still transfer projects, so you don't work on the pot at all. And flame-wise, I probably mostly go towards the arcanes. Those are slow projects already. Once all the arcanes are flame scored like above 135, you can probably start looking at the superiors to get like slightly better there. Like the
Okay.
what was it, like the pendant? Oh, the earring was pretty low, right? Yeah. Because that's just kind of like min-maxing on those things. Or the flames would go towards your bossing mules if you feel like you can still make better progress there. until they all have like acceptable flames. Usually for like boss accessory stuff, I look at about something like 45 to 50. And then if you get CRA gear, I typically go for around 70 plus for flame score. And then like I try to get a tier 6 on a weapon, whichever one you end up getting. If you go Fafnir or if you jump up to Abzo, it's kind of up to you. Personally, I hate, just like how you hate Commercy, I hate the Scrapyard weeklies. So I kind of just, yeah, I don't go Abzo, basically. I stay like Tyrant stuff, CRA stuff, boss accessory stuff, and that's good enough for me.
Thankfully, I have friends that take my to be Mules into Lomian.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the other option. Yeah, just skip it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Abzo, I think Abzo and Reinforced Colics, because it's very close to Superior, plus it's way faster. And then OK Notes, don't neglect the symbols, and yeah, finishing up the Legion and yeah, what is it, like last link skill, right? Like the DS and maybe one more. That will give those a whole lot of damage. Yeah. And then the other thing for boss moves would be to see if you have access to a guild for them. Guild skills, even if it's just 1 or 2 skills, is a huge benefit for boss mules. So look into that. Maybe revealing common familiars if you can, like unlocking 1 extra badge and just getting 2 15% ID familiars in there. That'll make a huge difference for most boss mules early on as well. So just revealing commons, just for that foundation. But oh yeah, So yeah, the crit. Once the crit and the ID is set, it'll just be a matter of finding those characters that you enjoy playing and just messing it up. You see the link skills here. Link skill is like my blind spot. Hang on, I have to check. If because I keep forgetting link skills. Because do you have the Cadena in here?
I do not.
No. Any specific?
Lara?
Well, the beautiful thing is once you have the empirical knowledge on, it works for every class, because empirical knowledge puts the debuff and then Cadena works. So you just have to be higher level than the target to get 12% damage. So that typically, at least then it already scales better than elementalism, right? It'll be a 12 versus a 10.
Yeah, I'm looking at the frequently asked questions and it's under situational.
But probably Core Aura would be situational as well, because that would be a thing where, yeah, you can ask Lara around your level. If anyone has done the maths and be like, yo, you have 35 and 33, which is of course really nice Core Aura. Like, is that 12% damage? Is that better? Is that worse?
It is better than the Cadena one, because it's not conditional.
Yeah, but the Cadena conditionality on bosses is 100% met, right? You're always going to have empirical knowledge debuff, and you're going to be higher level.
Would it not be better to switch out elementalism then?
Elementalism is 100% an upgrade, yeah. So you'd have to say if Core Aura is better than 10% damage, which that's a reason why I don't have in the flame score, we don't have percentage damage, right? Otherwise, we could put the weapon flame also in the flame score, because percentage damage is so class dependent, because some classes just have way more. That's why here I have like 400 plus, because 400 is like for most classes like a good guideline, but some classes will be bursting and will be going to like 800 or something, and 400 will be literally nothing for them. It's not as extreme, like back when we had the reboot passive that was percentage damage, like even my arc when bursting would go over 1000%. It was fucking crazy. That's why it's good that we went to the final damage instead, so that stat actually started, meaning a little bit more. But it's really hard for me to say like, oh yeah, 33 magic attack and 35 stat and 15 secondary stat, that's definitely like exactly 9% damage or something. Like, that's really hard to say. My frame of reference would roughly be like inner ability, where like a legendary line goes up to 30 magic attack, unique up to 21, but the boss damage goes up to 20 on the legendary line and 10 on a secondary. So I'd be looking at that direction. So I'd be thinking that Scardor would be better, and because, you know, percentage stat works on it. But yeah, that might be something just for a Lara at a high level to tell you, like, yes or no on that.
Switch out elementalism for...
Yeah, that would be the... For bossing at least, that would be, like, definitely an upgrade. The other thing is Thief's Cunning, right? When, you know, depending on server lag and depending on DPM versus DPS, whether you can rely more on elementalism being there all the time rather than Thief's Cunning only sometimes. But then, you know, because of lag, uptime of Thief's Cunning is very good. Yeah, that'll be kind of... Yeah, that might be up to you. And in Spirit of Freedom, yeah, if you need the survivability, right? Once you start getting more confident with some bosses, you might take it out and just go for more damage instead. But that depends on what you're comfortable with. Because all the bosses now have like the 1 to 1.5 second of invincibility anyway when you respawn. But of course, if your ping is decently high, then you lose that second just on respawn already. So it's still feels like there's almost nothing.
Hello, Will Phase 3.
Yeah, just jump around. Just wait until after an attack to respawn. Yeah. Are you one of the people that like loads into Will and then hopefully immunes the first move because you're still loading, kind of thing?
It's a 50-50.
Those are not good odds. Oof. Or like Lucid Phase 3, Lucid Phase 2, right? When half the time you spawn into giant sickles in your face.
You get used to it.
Yeah. That's why you just have to not int on other things, so you have like a life left over for that, you know.
Yeah.
It's not a glamorous life, but it's your reality.
We celebrate it if I get through with at least 8 lives left over.
Like, yay, she made it. Whoa.
Yeah.
Everyone excited. Okay. Yeah, so I would look for Lara specifically, well, because you're eventually going for the double crit damage. I imagine that the hyper stats will move around just a little bit, but your ID is still going up with the Legion grid. But I imagine the damage will go up a little bit. Maybe the crit damage down to 13, damage up to 11, maybe up to 12 if there's enough points. Eventually ID up to 10 because it'll just be so cheap. But that'll be roughly where you want it to be. But maybe a Lara knows about that. And then I'd probably ask about the link skill specifically for like higher level Lara as well. So yeah, the stat will stay artificially a little bit low. Might even go down a little bit if you get your Oz ring. But the main thing will be Oz ring would help your DPS a lot. But yeah, we talked about the equips and the order to look in things, right? Even just those 2 extra stars on those 2 arcane pieces would already make a nice difference. And setting yourself up to get backups and to prepare for possible switches once they happen. Yeah, other than that, 45k stack, because I'm thinking with my characters, I've got some 21, 22 potentials. Because that's like in between my marksman and my hero. Yeah, it really just comes down to having prime lines versus having like 2.5 lines, right? Like the 21 and then 6 all, something like that, like the 27%. And then slightly on the flames, but that's not as big. It's just compounding, you know? Sometimes I can feel like I'm pretty much done and I'm 45. Like, how do people ever get to 60? But once you start working on all of those little things, the flames just get a little bit better, the potential lines get a little bit better, all of your star forces get to 20 and 21. Suddenly you're at 50 and you're like, oh, okay. And then, you know, your the main thing, the sleeper thing, is your symbols. Because even though they don't multiply, just Sacred slowly leveling up, it's suddenly like another K stat that just suddenly enters your account, even though you didn't really upgrade anything. And it's like, oh, it's the symbols again.
Yeah.
Because I think now for my... Well, yeah, I mean, I can look at my symbols, but that's not going to tell you much because fucking HP main stat. Yeah, now it's 7, 6, and 3, so that's 160. But for me, that's 86,000 HP. It's like, oh, that's actually... It's pretty decent. As it times 13? I don't even know how much stat that would be. Guys, how much stat is it? Is it 200 per level? Is it 3.2k?
200, I think it's 200 per level, yes.
Yeah. So that would be 3.2k stat just from this. If you're at 100, so that's another 1.2k stat that just comes from that. It's just all those little bits added together. Okay. We gone through all the screenshots. Is there anything you had in mind, or any topic that you feel we need to dive into a little bit more, or any advice you still need at this point?
I think actually that was it. I have some idea where to head to with my equipment, regarding bows and mules, the flames as well, which is actually something I was too afraid to ask, because it gets a little bit rowdy in there.
When you say in there, you mean like in your guild, or like in the chat?
In the voice chat, that I'm in with my guild.
I see, yeah.
So it gets a little bit hard to talk at times.
I see. Yeah, you don't want to be the... Then you have to deal with the fucking gender thing where you're like woman trying to yell. Guys that like bleed out women in voice chats very easily without noticing it.
Yes, but also because it's mostly late at night, I have to keep my voice low.
Yeah, you don't want to wake up your family and stuff.
No, my upstairs neighbors actually.
Your neighbors? Okay.
My upstairs neighbors, like they came down after some friends into the Hella run and told me that I was a little bit too loud and like.
Okay, yeah, the glory of apartments. I'm glad I moved from an apartment to like a small house. The first thing I did, because I streamed from my house, was like slowly starting to stream louder and louder and later and see if anyone complained, and nobody complained. Like the insulation is really good between the houses, so I'm really happy with that. So I can be like 3-4 a.m. and just be yelling and nobody hears anything, so that's perfect for me. It's just part of the price. Yeah, apartments is it's a different thing. Usually it's a little bit cheaper to live, but yeah, you have to deal with the upstairs and the downstairs. Usually the audio, that's definitely a thing. Okay. Yeah, if you need more details, you can always check out some of the commands. They're all available for you to check whenever you need to. If it's specific bosses or if it's something that you're missing, you can always let me know. If there's a extra information on a certain topic that you're looking for but you can't find it, you can always let me know, and always making extra commands and stuff like that. Yeah, just reach out if you need anything else, I guess.
Yeah, I will do that. It was very insightful, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. But yeah, I wish you good luck. Hopefully the next event comes soon, but not too soon. Hopefully you can be done with the boss mules first, right? So that you can get those rolling. And yeah, just free levels, because sometimes people are asking like, oh, where do you train at 215 or a 225? It's like, usually I don't train at those levels at all. I just do dailies, and the characters just roll from 210 to like 227 or something. Just doing Monster Park and dailies, they just kind of roll through those levels, and then you use some of those level up potions that you get anywhere to kind of finish them up to 230, and before you know it, you have a bunch of 230s. And then you can more realistically do Lotus and Damien, right? Before that, at like 224 or something, it's like, you might be able to, but it's like 10 to 15 minute runs each, and it's like, it's just not, just doesn't feel good.
I'm used to it with my Polly. He's slow, but he's at least solid.
Slow, yeah, Polly's like slow and steady for sure. And you can kind of use this as a guideline for like the bare minimum of like what kind of numbers you're looking for. Typically this is like the CRA and HMAG level, so it's like beginning of mid. Or the end of early, I guess. And then the end of mid is more like trying to do slime and everything. Well, slime maybe like in a party, but definitely like Lotus and Damien and everything below is very easy once you're at this. So if you're somewhere in between there, which of course is a pretty big gap, like 5 to 14, but 5 to 24, but Lotus Damien, typically try-hard people start at like 9 or 10k stat, but for most people it's like closer to 20. Like low 20s is like under 5 minutes Lotus and Damien, so, or Lotus or Damien, so like in 10 minutes you can do both around 20k stat, so use that as a guideline of like how far you need to push on all these stats. Okay, well yeah, so good luck, and don't be a stranger, and I hope everything goes well with your hand. Hopefully that recovers soon.
It has recovered mostly, so.
Okay, nice. Well, yeah, and maybe we'll see you around.
Yeah, I'll be watching often.
Okay, thank you very much. But yeah, I'll see you around, and have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Coolio. Finally, another progression session, guys. We did it. Woo! All of those people waiting on YouTube for months. Here it is. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it was useful. Hopefully one or two things you didn't know yet and you could pick up on. And if you're in a similar position, wanting to know where you can push your account to the next level, really getting through that late game and going towards the end game, Boss Mules, planning your upgrades. Don't be afraid to look for parties that have the items that you need. Look for the items that you need. You can't find it in a party. That's cool. Everyone is doing their own thing. But you need to look out for number one as well, right? You need to be able to make it so that you... Because Black Mage, it's a pretty high bar, and it takes forever to get through. So get it started and start pushing. Because even just getting started and starting to practice doesn't mean you're going to be clearing immediately. It's a hard boss fight. It's rough. So give yourself those opportunities. And yeah, hopefully this session helped you kind of see where those pressure points can be and where you can find the strengths and the weaknesses in your account and how you can play through those. If you would like one of these coaching sessions, check out !coaching in the Twitch chat over there, or leave a comment on this video saying that you would like to win. We're almost at the end of February again, so I'll be drawing 2 winners soon for this month. And since I had almost no sessions, probably every single person who leaves a comment is going to win. Because I had even last month I barely had any comments of people who wanted to win. So you basically have a 100% chance of winning a free session worth at least $25 depending on how you do it. So do that, leave that comment, and I'll probably reach out to you soon. Make sure you include your Discord name. And yeah, I stream every day over at Twitch, so use any of those commands with all of this information. That's all freely available. And other than that, I thank you guys for watching. Thanks for being here. Thanks for keeping up watching the YouTube videos. And I will see you on the next one.